We've got the inside of the time fuse cutter.
Yeah, it's just showing that it's a single edge razor blade. I put the razor blade in the vise and pry off the band with a screwdriver. It comes off real easy, but there's a little pocket milled in there, so you can move the razor blade along to different parts of the razor blade, and when you use up half the other half razor blade, just flip it over, and you can use this half of the razor blade. But that's generically what I did. I put the pocket in there to support the blade, and the clamp is a flat piece with the section milled out. But basically, when it's nice, dimensionally figured, so these surfaces are all nice and parallel and clamping correctly when it is screwed down. It's not clamping like this, and it's not clamping like that. It's clamping nice and flat against the razor blade. But that's just coming up with the right dimensions, which isn't much of a problem to do.
That's for a 9 thousandths blade.
Yeah, I find these in 9 and 12 thousandths. I just chose the 9 thousandths for cutting off the fuses that go in my cap plugs because it does less damage to the powder core when you're slicing through the razor blade. I do not use a Childe blade. That thing is extremely wide. It cuts, and it probably works okay, but I just went with the thinnest blade that I could find that would disturb the powder core the least when I'm doing my cap plugs. Now, if you're using this to cut off just slugs of time fuse that are going to be cross-matched, like I was doing, but who cares what happens to the powder core in the end, because your cross matches will be like there, so that's not critical. But on the cap plugs where I nose the fire receiving end and prime the fire giving end and just use the slug of time fuse as basically as a spillette, I want to disturb that powder core as least as possible. So if you got the choice of something thick or something thin, I went with something thin. It just made sense to me.
Yeah.
This is how I punch my cross match holes in time fuse. I made up this little fixture with a series of holes in it. These happen to be 100 thousandths between the centerline distance of the holes. You could make it anything you want. Another convenient one is an 1/8 inch distance between the centerline of the holes, and you can see the end of the tube, the piece of brass, and the bottom section is relieved so the stuff can come out. But basically, piece of fuse. I punch both holes at the same time. And that's what you get for holes. Now, those holes might be a little bit too small to stick a piece of thermalite or cross match, some black match in there, but this is has a long taper on it. The taper goes from about here to here. This is a probe, some sort of probe they were using for a medical instrument. I don't know how or why it was being used, but anyways, this taper is plunge ground on the centerless grinder, and then it's nice and polished up. So if you want to open up the hole, that long, thin taper with this nice finish on there, you can just take and it kind of like just sizes the hole to whatever you want it to be, whether it's for thermalite or a little bit bigger if you want it for a different size piece of cross match or whatever. But it's a nice, you'll notice no resin, no tar or anything like that gets on that surface, and you can size the holes. And about as close as you can get the centerline to centerline distance, it's fixtured. You're punching both at the same time. Other than that, I don't know how you can get them any closer, but that's how I do the cross matches. There is an adjustable stop, which is nothing but a drill blank. So you can set wherever you want, you can set the stop. You set the stop slightly longer, and then obviously if the stop was set there, you'd punch the hole about there. So you have this section of the end of the fuse. But that's just, that's just what looks good, a trial and error. But that's how I do my cross matching for my time fuses. If I'm going to use time fuse, it's done on this fixture right here. You need a stripper on top, because when this thing comes up, there's no way, heck, you're going to hold that down with your fingers. That stripper on top is absolutely necessary to keep this thing from going up.
Yeah.
And it's just done. That's it. I also use this punch with different punches and stuff like that. I use this kick press for making all my different size discs that I need for whatever ID tubes I have. I've got punches and stuff that go on here and a different base that goes on the bottom. But I use this kick press for doing those things, those things too, to make my small discs. And that's how it's done.
Yeah, very good.